So for those of you that have not seen my previous video regarding this charge back to the starter battery, so Redarc have a circuit diagram, and I'll take you through it in a second. They basically have a circuit diagram that shows you how you can use your BC-DC to wire back to, sorry the wind's blowing a bit, wire back using their smart alternator solenoid. You can charge back to your starter battery when you're camping off-road using solar. So solar comes in, uses the BC-DC, so your engine's not running, of course. Solar's charging your BC-DC, that charges your auxiliary battery here, and then what happens, basically it's supposed to happen anyway, is this solenoid, it's a dual sensing SBI12 from Redarc. It's supposed to then send the once this battery is full, it's supposed to detect the voltage and then connect over to the starter battery. So once this one's full, it shoots the rest of your power over to your starter battery. I thought this would be a brilliant idea because I find that my starter battery starts to drain slowly after a few days, or not even that, after a couple of days it certainly drains. And yeah, anyway, cut a long story short, which you see in the first video, I went through all this and then I hit some issues, and the issues were for me that this dual sensing solenoid, so what happens is that when the ignition is on at the top here, it energizes a normally closed relay, so it opens the relay, so it opens the ground, so when the engine's running the solenoid cannot activate, which is fine. So when you're driving, obviously you want all your juice to going into your starter battery, and then it goes through your BC-DC to charge your auxiliary battery. So this circuit needs to not close. What I found though was when I pulled up and switched the engine off, that is when that relay drops out, thus closing the normally closed contact, energizing the solenoid. Now, even without solar connected, just after a short run, I found that this was switching on. Now when you switch the engine off, so according to Redarc there is a delay on it, and it's 5 seconds. So if you look at the pamphlet that comes with it, SBI12D, there's a 5-second delay there. Hopefully you can see that 5-second delay for kicking in, but that's not enough. When you switch the engine off, it seems to take longer than that to die down. I know you can get this time adjusted, but obviously when you do this you have no idea of this, and to be honest with you, I'm not even convinced, because I stood in front of the car once 2 or 3, 5 minutes after it was switched off, and I heard the solenoid going in and out. Every few seconds it was going in and out, and this happened for about a couple of minutes. I don't know what it was doing. Why? Because there was no solar connected and the engine wasn't running. So the problem seems to be along the fact that there's a bit of some conflicting information. So according to the Redarc diagram where you do this charge back, they talk about a sensing voltage of 13.7 volts. So this SBI senses the auxiliary battery reaches 13.7 volts, it then switches over and connects to the starter battery. Now it's dual sensing, so it senses both sides, so hold that thought. So what's happening is that, see, that says 13.7, but if you actually look at the Redarc material that comes with, sorry the wind's blowing it away, we'll get it in a minute, the Redarc material that comes with the SBI12, it says 13.2 volts. So I don't know if you can see that, but it says 13.2 volts. So what is it, 13.2 or 13.7? And actually that makes quite a difference, because if you've just been charging the battery, it hovers quite high above 13 for certainly a few seconds before it drops back below. So what was happening, as I said, relay was going in and out like a bugger's muddle. And what was even worse was I discovered that when I pulled up from a short drive coming back from work, so I've not been using the auxiliary battery at all, you know, so it should be full, starter battery's in pretty good nick. So what I found was I would pull up in my garage, and then just after I switched the engine off, as I said, the SBI12 would kick in, and it would stay running. Now you could argue all it's doing is equalizing the juice between the two batteries, but it wasn't actually. It was draining my auxiliary battery, which is better obviously than draining the the starter battery. So the auxiliary battery is an AGM, so whether that had something to do with it, I don't know. But what I found was I was losing, and it actually got down to saturation level of only 68%, I remember one day, and I wasn't even using it, so it was killing it, absolutely killing it. So all this has just got too complicated and too hard. So to be honest with you, yes, it's probably one of those jobs where, you know, you think you're really going to do the best, and you think this is a great answer. Well, no, it's not, to be honest with you. Would I do it again? Yes and no. I do like the fact that when you are camped up and you have it switched on, and I'll show you what I did in a minute, you have it switched on, it does work. You know, it does charge the auxiliary battery first, and then it kicks over and trickle charges your starter battery. So that definitely does work, but there's a few gotchas, as I discovered when I made it. So I'll just take you around and show you those gotchas. So for those of you who watched my first video, you know the first issue I hit with regards to relays. So the recommendation from Redarc is to put a relay in between the starter battery and the BCDC so that you break that connection when the engine's off. So that is wired to the ignition, and it'll make that connection when the engine's on, and obviously it carries out normal operations, sends from the alternator or the starter battery down to the BCDC. That's all good. When you switch the engine off, that breaks that, so you can't get any charge back that way and confuse the BCDC. So anyway, cut a long story short, that relay, you need a heavy duty relay. I didn't get one, my mistake, I agree. What I ended up doing though is actually putting in a isolator switch here, so it's a manual process now. So that's my BCDC manual switch. So normally that is always in the on position, so that's always connected, and only when I'm going to go camping and I plug the solar in do I switch that to off. Yes, if I forget to switch it back to on when I drive off, I'll get no charge from my alternator, but anyway, we'll have to see how that goes. I could put a heavy duty relay in there, but you know, it's all getting too bloody complicated again. The second issue, as I just explained to you, was that the BCDC here was kicking in when I didn't want it to. So when the engine was off, it was kicking in, and I'm thinking, yeah, look, this relay has got to go. So what I've done is I've actually taken this relay out. Actually, no, I haven't taken it out, sorry, apologies. I've left it in as a fail-safe, but I've actually put in a switch between the relay contact. So what happens is the earth for the SBI 12 comes in here and then goes down to 30, so 87A, and which is normally closed, and then goes down to 30. So so what I've done is I've put a switch actually on the earth. So by having a switch on the earth, I can keep that open all the time unless I want the SBI to be active. So only when I want the SBI to be working do I flick the switch. And I've actually just, yeah, it's a little bit crude, but you can see I've actually just put a switch in here, so I can just switch it on, off in there when I want the SBI 12 to actually be working. So cut a long story short, when I pull up, plug the solar in, I know, and I'm going to have the bonnet up anyway, because I always plug my solar in under the bonnet anyway, because it's a good idea to also check your engine and things when you pull up. So I know now that when I stop, pull up, plug the solar in, I have to come around here, I have to switch both of these two switches over, so the BCDC goes to off and the solenoid goes to on. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, as I said, it's something probably I would think of twice about doing. I wouldn't recommend you did it. To be honest with you, some of the original ways that I mentioned in my first video, roundabout, just doing it manually, just connecting your solar up to your starter battery, that sort of stuff, to be honest with you, you might as well. This is all, you know, I spent a lot of money, time, effort, and probably, you know, the whole point with electrics, if you know enough about some of my videos, is that I don't like too much complexity with the terms of electrical work, and this is probably overkill. Anyway, that's it, bored you enough, but hopefully that's the conclusion of this little project. Thanks for watching.